Hello, welcome everyone to the data science virtual chapter. It's been a while. We had a session for this um, virtual chapter, and luckily we have Anupama Natarajan, an MVP from New Zealand, uh, presenting a session today on creating your first model using automated machine learning. I would like to, introduce Anupama to our virtual group and make her a presenter right now, and we can start from there. And just want to make sure everyone can hear. If you're hearing, can you just put a chat? Just want to make sure the audio is visible, audible. So we can get started. So, Anupama, okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Robert.
Great. Thanks,
So
Tomo.
I'll
Thanks
hand
for
over, to you to present the session, please. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Tomo, for giving me the opportunity to present at the Data Science Virtual Group. And this is my first session I'm presenting at the Data Science Virtual Group, so I'm more excited too. And thanks for everyone for coming for today's session, which is around creating your first model using automated machine learning. I think machine learning is a hot topic as always for the past few years. And I think automated machine learning is now taking machine learning to the next step. So it is really good to get into that space and try and understand why Microsoft is really investing more on the automated machine learning technologies. A little bit about myself before I kickstart the session. I'm Anupama Natarajan. I'm a data and AI consultant living in Wellington, New Zealand. And it's 6 a.m. in the morning, and it's good for me, not too early or not too late. And I'm have 20 years of working in the IT industry basically, and I'm a Microsoft MVP for AI and a Microsoft certified trainer, and I do speak in a lot of conferences around the world. And I also organize the local SQL Saturday in Wellington and also some local user group events here. So if you have any questions post this session, or if you run out of time in order to answer any of your questions, feel free to reach out to me through any of my social networking channels here. And yeah, I frequently respond to that on a timely fashion. But given this week I'm organizing a SQL Saturday in Wellington, probably there may be a delay, but feel free to reach out to me and I'll get back to you with some responses. Great. Without any further delay, let us look at the agenda for today's session. So we'll briefly look at an introduction about what machine learning is and why it is a buzzword and why everyone is talking about machine learning. We'll also look at like what automated machine learning is, why there is a need for automated machine learning process, and what is the advantage like organizations are going to get with automated machine learning. And we'll also look at a quick demo on how do you go about and create your first model using automated machine learning on Azure. And finally, I have got some reference links that you can take it back once you finish this session. You can go and refer to them and get more information about automated machine learning. And finally, if there are any questions, I'll just take it towards the end and I can respond with some answers. So basically, what is machine learning? So if you think about machine learning, it is about finding patterns in your data and using those patterns to make some predictions. So it clearly identifies in terms of like it is actually finding patterns in the data. So which means data is the foremost important thing in machine learning. And there is always challenges in organizations because like my data is not clean and I don't have enough data. Can I get started with machine learning or something? So yes, you need data in order to make predictions. But if you don't have data, at least the organization should start collecting the data, because then only like you can start do machine learning in a really good manner, so to get better outcomes. So typically, what is a machine learning process? So we need the data, and sometimes not all the data is going to be clean and perfect. So yes, there is a part of data cleansing that has to happen. But even before that, you need to understand what is the business problem you're trying to solve, because that is really important. So I have seen a lot of organizations, they hear about the buzzword of machine learning, but if you go and find out from them saying, okay, what is the problem that you are trying to solve using machine learning? Sometimes they don't know. So it is always good to encourage organizations to come up saying, okay, it's good to use machine learning, but what is the problem you're trying to solve, or what are you trying to get advantage out of machine learning? And once you know the problem, then probably the next step is finding out whether the organization has got data that will help us in terms of predicting the outcomes for the problem they are trying to solve. Because if they don't have the data, then we need to look at, okay, where do we find the data? If it is not internal to the organization, is it going to come external from the organization, and so on? So once you have the data, once you know the business problem you're trying to solve, the next thing to find out is what is the algorithm that I need to pick and choose in order to solve that business problem. So there is another step that you need to do. And once you choose the algorithm, you define your model, and using the data that you have got, you may train your model, and then finally you test your model. And once you're happy with the outcomes of your model, then probably like you will deploy the model. And again, this is going to be a continuous process. Like it's not that one time I created a model and I got an outcome and the job is finished. So it is a continuous process where based on the feedback and based on the new data that you are collecting, the model will need to be kept on refining, and then it has to be deployed in order to get better outcomes. So maybe when you started, you didn't have enough data. So your predictions may be a percentage that you are not happy with. But as soon as you keep on collecting the data through this the cyclic process, probably you will start getting better outcomes when you start getting more information. So this is a typical machine learning process. But if you look at like, okay, why there is a need for automated machine learning, this is a tedious process. So this is not a simple process where you can kickstart a machine learning process and then get everything in a 2 week or 3 week interval and then get an outcome and so on. So there is a lot of factors that, as I said, you need to find out the data, then you have to go through, find out the model. And again, choosing the algorithm and building your model is not a simple thing. So you have to try different options and different parameters to try which is going to be the optimal model in order to give you the better outcome for your problem. And that's why there is a need for automated machine learning. Because if you look at most of the business problems, pretty much there is a common pattern. So I would say at least around 60 to 70% of the problems can be pretty much it's a similar pattern across the different industries. So predicting prices, predicting forecast, and forecasting demand. So all these are some of the common patterns that is pretty much similar across industries. So if you look at like rather than every organization employing their own data scientists, creating their own models for some of these common problems, what Microsoft have done is they have just created an automated machine learning models. So it basically uses the same AI capabilities to automate the machine learning training itself. So when I say machine learning training, the whole process that I was talking about, which is getting the data, finding the right algorithm, then you create the model based on the different parameters that you want to apply, and finally like you deploy the model. So that machine learning process which I explained, Microsoft have taken it one step further in saying rather than a data scientist doing this every time, why not we can automate this particular process itself through automated machine learning. And that's what we are going to see cover of in this session, like how they have gone about and did the automated machine learning. So the key thing to understand is you can't use automated machine learning currently to solve every single problem that you have got within your business. But where they have just said is some of the common problems that exist across different industries that can be definitely used with the automated machine learning. But again, you also have a choice. So if you are not happy with the outcome of the model, you can go down the route of getting your data scientist to create a model that is going to be unique in case if your industry is a bit unique in nature. Great. So the idea for machine learning, where machine learning comes up with a lot of technology, so you can use a different set of technologies to create your machine learning models. So the reason for that is not to make everyone confusing. It's mainly for there are different set of user base, and everyone wants to do machine learning in different ways. So let me start with the bottom. So if you think about developers, you have ML.NET because a lot of developers are well versed in .NET, and it is easy for them to jump on to something similar like ML.NET so that they can still learn machine learning and create models but using the .NET framework. But if you think about SQL Server data professionals, so they already do it day in, day out of their jobs using SQL Server. So they have the ability of creating machine learning algorithms in SQL Server itself, and we classify them as data engineers. Then you have data analysts, like people who work on the analytical tools like Power BI, and Microsoft have now infused AI capabilities and machine learning capabilities inside Power BI and the Power Platform tools. And the next step, you have your citizen data scientists. So where the machine learning or the automated machine learning is mainly going to be useful is for the citizen data scientists. So these people are not data scientists who are well versed in machine learning or data science related things, but they understand okay, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? What should be the algorithm I should be using? And pretty much feeding the information to get an outcome. So it's just making machine learning process a easier process for the citizen data scientists, and that's where automated machine learning fits in. And finally, you have your data scientists who are well versed and they can create their own models using Python or R. And we classify them as the real data scientists because in and out they know everything what they have to do within the machine learning stack. So this is just a quick overview of the different roles and what are the tools that are available for these type of people to create machine learning models within the Microsoft stack. So let us quickly look at what is the process of an automated machine learning flow. So yes, we start with the data, and of course there is a data cleansing activity, and then we find out what is the algorithm that we need to choose in order to solve the problem, because there is a whole heap of algorithms that are available. You need to just understand okay, what is the algorithm I'll be choosing for solving this particular problem. And of course all the machine learning models comes with a set of parameters, because if you think about I want to predict a price of a, a car. So there are a lot of factors come into play. What is the make of the car? What is the model of the car? And when the car was actually purchased for the first time, and so on. So all these things are important aspects in order to determine the price of the car. So these are what we call it as parameters, and sometimes the price will deviate based on the parameters that you pass. And that's what you need to just figure out, what are the different parameters that is going to help in determining the outcome of my model. And that's what you need to feed it through for automated machine learning. And what you get is, once you feed in through all this information, the automated machine learning behind the scenes is going to apply the different combinations of your parameters to the data that you have supplied, and it is going to come up with a list of models that it has tried, and also it is going to recommend this is the optimal model I'm recommending based on this. So all the list of models that it created, and also why the it is recommending a particular model as the most preferred or the optimal model is also being provided to the users. So you can literally go through the models and you can figure out why Microsoft has recommended that as a particular model to use for your business problem. And finally, you have the ability to deploy your model and pretty much start consuming through any of your downstream applications. So whatever I'm showing here, pretty much you can use that using a graphical user interface, and which we will be actually seeing in our demo. So the idea behind here is it's just pretty much taking the complex process of the machine learning into more simplified version, so that anyone who doesn't have a lot of the data science knowledge or anything can go ahead and create the models and get the outcome that they are looking for. So that is the idea behind the automated machine learning. So you need to have some basics. I'm not saying okay, you don't need to know anything. You need to have some basics about data science, but you don't need to be an advanced user in data science or machine learning in order to do machine learning models. Great. So pretty much the automated machine learning is Microsoft using AI in order to train the models in order to give you the automated machine learning, which is quite another way of looking at how AI can complement itself in terms of helping us to build these models in an easier way. So just as a flow, what I explained through the diagram. So how automated ML works is, you identified what is the problem that you're trying to solve. You specify the source and the format. So this is mainly the way how you will be providing the information through the graphical user interface. And then you will be configuring like, okay, what is the compute target I need to use again for training my model. So again, this is all on Azure. So which means you don't need to worry about anything. You need to just pick and choose. Am I going to, what is the type of the compute I need in order to, what is it, train this model. So the reason being that depending on the volume of the data that you have got, you may need to choose the appropriate compute for that. And finally, like you will be configuring the automated ML parameters. So this is pretty much what you have to configure before you can kickstart the automated ML through the interface. So identifying what is the problem, specifying what is the source, the data basically, and configuring the computer target so that the model can run. And finally, like you configure the ML parameters. So once these are all provided, then pretty much you are good to go in terms of creating your machine learning models. So when we talk about anything on Azure, the first thing comes into mind is around pricing and what are the different editions that are available. So the pricing information, I have got a link in the references section, which you can go and look at it in terms of like how pricing works. The reason for that is because the enterprise edition is currently in preview mode. So what it allows you to do is there are a few things that you can currently do it for free. So it is better to check at the pricing at the time when you're consuming it or when it becomes GA. So you will know what is the exact pricing for using automated machine learning. But when it comes to the editions, there are two versions of automated ML editions available. One is basic. So pretty much like you can create and run experiments in notebooks, and that's what the basic one provides you. But the enterprise provides you all the capabilities like you can the UI capabilities where you can go and create your automated machine learning model just through the user interface, which I'll be demoing today. So the notebook capability is like if you want to still go ahead and create your Python scripts or R to create your machine learning models, you have that capability also. So just a quick thing around looking at a glance of automated machine learning. So I have got my automated machine learning model here. And as I said, it is a cyclic process. So you get the data, you choose the algorithm, you choose the parameters, then it actually like creates the model, you deploy the model, and again, it goes through the same thing. So it will learn and evaluate based on the outcome of the model and the new data that is arriving. And again, it is keep on going on as a cyclic process. And again, what you are seeing here is same thing. So the outcome in terms of like, okay, based on the user inputs, the automated machine learning will run through several experiments based on different sets. Like, okay, maybe the features, it may take a different set of features with a different set of parameters. And finally, like what it gives you is a training score. So it trains different models and comes up with some scores, and then it provides a ranking based on the score. And based on the ranking, that's how you are getting to know like this is the optimal model that the automated machine learning is recommending to use. And pretty much this is the process that we are going to see in the demo. Great. So without any further delay, let us jump on to our demo, which is how do we create our first classification model using automated machine learning. So I'm just quickly jumping on to my Azure portal here. So what I have got here is just a simple resource group that I have created. I don't have any resources provisioned at this moment. So I'll just go ahead and add a machine learning service. So just typing on machine learning. So what I get to see here is the machine learning service. So here I can go ahead and provision the machine learning service as listed here. So once it comes with the information, I'll just give a workspace name. So I'll just call it as a data science virtual group 2020 as my workspace name. And great, I'll use Australia East, which is the closest data center for me. And this is the one I was mentioning, like whether the workspace edition you want to choose is basic or enterprise. Given the demo I'm going to do is based on a graphical user interface, I'll be jumping onto using the enterprise edition.
So
So I'll
Anupama,
just,
quick question. So when you talk about this machine learning as a resource, is it spinning up a virtual machine or is it like doing as a service? software as a
It's doing
service.
it's doing as a service. So basically,
Service.
it's
Okay.
not a virtual machine or anything at this moment we are provisioning. It's just a typical like any other service on Azure
Okay.
you're provisioning. Okay. So just I'll go ahead and review and create it. So the main idea here is anything that pretty much we put it on Azure is like we don't need to worry. It's all about Microsoft managing it behind the scenes. When it comes to real provisioning a VM or something, I'll tell. But all the example which I'm going to show today, it's all managed. The infrastructure is pretty much managed on Azure, so you don't need to worry about that at all. Great. So this is going to go and create a workspace for me, and then I'll be start using that workspace. Great. The deployment is happening as we can see. So in the meantime, what I have got is I have got a sample data set, which is a CSV file that has got some banking information data that I have got. So what I'm planning to use is I'm going to use that data and I will be just using that to predict some of the outcomes saying whether this person is going to use a fixed deposit or not based on the amount of transactions and things that they have been doing with the bank. So that is the use case that we are trying to use here. I think it will pretty much quickly finish it off soon. Great, let me get back to the resource group here.
So in this case, once it is provisioned, once we use it, we can turn it off. We don't need it at that point in time. Then we can start it back again, right?
No, this is like in this case, like it is based on the consumption, like how many models you generate and so on. That's how the pricing model works.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is not a VM or something where you can stop it. So it will be still running, but the consumption wise, it is more based on, okay, are you actually creating the model during that time? So how much you are actually using it from a like from that perspective. And the next one is the output of that, which is like a web service or something that you will be getting out of that model. And again, it's all about like how much of request that you are making to that particular web service.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. I think it is still doing. So what it is trying to do is it will provision a few things in terms of like a machine learning workspace, application insights, key vault to maintain any of the secrets and things. So I'll just, because of the time conscious while that is doing, this is what pretty much it is going to provision you. So it would have created a machine learning workspace, and this is the typical workspace that we will be getting. Along with that, the app insights and key vault. So don't worry about the storage account or the container instances because I have deployed the model in this particular resource group just to save the time because the deployment process normally takes like 15 to 20 minutes. So I don't want to just make everyone's time. I don't want to waste everyone's time just waiting to see the deployment process. So I have already done the deployment. So I will walk you through how it can be done here. Okay, so I think this is still happening. Cool. So this is the machine learning workspace that got created. So when you click on this particular resource, once it is provisioned, what you can see here is, yeah, so you can try and use the new Azure Machine Learning Studio. So I think you would have used Azure Machine Learning Studio as a separate website. And I think Microsoft has now folded that capability also within the Azure portal. So if you just hit on launch now, pretty much it is going to open your Azure Machine Learning Studio here. So as you can see here, this is a single interface which they have tied it irrespective of whether you are a data scientist who wants to create your machine learning models from scratch using notebooks, you can do here. Or if you are using Machine Learning Studio, so if you have been using the graphical user interface to create your models, you can still use the designer to do the same through here. Or if you don't want to do anything and you want to let you're as like what a citizen data scientist and you want to create your automated machine learning models, then pretty much you will jump onto the automated machine learning model link here. The idea behind this is rather than sending the users to different places in order to create machine learning models, you have everything available in this single interface. And this is now called as Azure Machine Learning Studio, which you can launch once you have provisioned your Azure Machine Learning service. So let me quickly check. Yes, it got provision. So let me refresh here just to show you like what are the services that gets provision. So as I said, like you got the machine learning, a simple storage account. The reason for the storage account is you will be creating some data. So you'll be saying this is the data I want to use, and you are actually storing that data in your own storage account on your Azure portal. So that is another question people normally have got, like, okay, where is the data actually stored? So data is actually stored on your blob storage. And then you have got app insights again for troubleshooting or for handling issues or errors to be logged. And finally, the key vault is to hold your secrets. So let me click on this one. And again, as I said, like you will have the launch now button. So this goes into your own machine learning workspace that you have provisioned. So now from here, I can go ahead and create my automated machine learning models quite easily. So it's just loading up. Great, it's loading my workspace. So once the workspace is loaded, what we are going to do is we will jump on to automated machine learning, and we'll go ahead and create a new automated machine learning run. So as I mentioned, this is a graphical user interface which allows me to do steps and typically aim towards the citizen data scientist. But if you don't like this and you want to go and write your own things, you can pretty much use the notebooks to do the same. Okay, so here I'm going to create a data set first, and I'll choose from my local file. So I have got a file here. So I'll say like my bank sample data set. And what I'll do is I need to just go ahead and click on next. So here what I can do is it automatically is going to create a workspace blob store which is already available. So this blob store got created before. As part of provisioning my workspace, I'm pretty much going to use that blob store itself. So now I'm going to select the file I need. I got just a CSV file here. So this is now going to upload my CSV file. So if I just say next. So as you can see here, the upload process is happening as we speak. Once it is uploaded, then probably I have an option now to choose like what is the format of the file and so on. So this is a comma delimited file. I need to just mention it has got column headers. So now the headers will be taken in there. So I don't need to skip any rows. So pretty much is all good. So I can move on to the next step. So this is actually the schema part. The schema part is nothing but you can pick and choose like, okay, whether you want to include certain columns in the processing of the model or not. So you can include or exclude, and this is the option that it gives you. A simple thing what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just exclude a column called day of week. So let me just exclude that. So this is not going to be available at all as part of my model process. So finally, I got my data set ready. I'll go ahead and create it. So this is going to go ahead and create my data sample, which is now available for me to utilize. So once the data is created, I can just click here just to see a preview of my data source. So this will allow you to confirm like, okay, the columns that I excluded and things, it's not appearing anymore. So which is good. And this Y column is actually my prediction. So this is like, is this person is going to apply for a fixed deposit or not or something. So that's what I'm trying to predict. Cool. So now I have got my sample data done. So the next what I need to provide will be my experiment name. So this is just a simple name that you need to provide for your experiment. So I'll just say like my first ML experiment. And the target column, as I mentioned, I wanted to use was Y, and the compute target. So this is the things I said. One is you select your data set, and then you need to also select what is your compute target. So here I can specify my new compute target here. So this is where your virtual machine thing comes in. So because here it decides on what is the size of the virtual machine that you need to use based on the data that you have got. So I'll just call it as my auto ML compute. So again, the region is Australia East. I will use the virtual machine size, but there is a full list of virtual machine sizes available here. I'll just quickly jump on there. Sorry, here. Okay, I'll come back to that because I think I have a link in the references section. So the priority is like you can choose it like whether you need it as a dedicated virtual machine or you can use it as a low priority. And again, this is all tied with the enterprise, the cost that we will be paying in terms of pricing. So the minimum nodes is going to be one. At least I need to have one node, and maximum nodes is up to 6. And I can just go ahead and keep the rest of the things as my default values, and I'll go ahead and create it. So this is going to go ahead and create the compute target that is available for me to run my model over that. So once this is done, this will take just a few minutes to create it. The next step, what we'll be doing is we need to choose what is the machine learning algorithm that we want to use for this particular problem. So as I mentioned, you don't need to be an expert in data science or machine learning concepts, but at least you need to have a good understanding of what algorithm you can use for what problem you're trying to solve. If you have that basic set of things, then at least you know like which one to choose. Great. So in this scenario, I'm going to choose the classification machine learning task. And as you can see here, a few things are available here. The more algorithms that are available, then pretty much it will start appearing here. So if your business problem require a different algorithm than what it has been listed here, then probably you can't use automated machine learning for now. You may use the designer, or you can create your own using R or Python. The reason for that is like this is currently in preview and the more features will be also added. So watch the space, and if you're planning to use machine learning, come and check here to see what algorithms are supported before you go ahead and make that call. So here I'm going to choose the classification algorithm. So I'll check some additional configuration settings. So here you can go and choose your metric. So how do you want the rankings that should be based on which particular metric? So here I will just say based on my AUC weighted, what it tells me is this metric will tell me like how my machine learning algorithm will be measured and it will be ranked. So if you want to block any of the algorithms, you can just go ahead and use the list of algorithms that you want to block. And also you can just set the exit criteria. So if the training job is running more than an hour or something, then you can automatically set it as a exit criteria. And any validations that you want to use, I want to use the k-fold cross validation. So this is what I was talking about, is at least you need to know what these mean before you configure these parameters. And finally, how many number of concurrent iterations that you want to run, I'll just choose 5, which means like the more concurrent it has got, the better quicker the models will be generated and will be made available for you. So once you have finished setting the additional configurations, you can pretty much save it. And finally, you can hit on finish, which is going to go ahead and it is going to create a new machine learning model. So this is going to take at least a 10 to 15 minutes. So as you can see here, this is going to run the different type of models that it can run based on the parameters that you have provided. And finally, it is going to give you what is the optimal model. So while this is running, so you can keep refreshing and see what's going on in this, because then it will start showing the different type of models that it is getting created as it is going along. So currently it is still in its process of evaluating. And also you can start looking at the execution logs to see what it is actually trying to do. So pretty much it's really good, because in terms of you can monitor the progress as it is doing what it is trying to do. So given it is going to take 10 to 15 minutes, I didn't want to bother you with that. So I have already run that model and I have got the experiments available here. So here I'm just navigating to my experiment. So this is the run which I completed, and you can see here the list of models. So the different type of algorithms that it has tried and what is the weight of this. So this is the ranking I have said, based on the AUC weighted, it says this is the optimal model. The voting Ensemble is the optimal model that the automated machine learning has identified for the data set I'm using here. And there is all the other algorithms that it has tried and has used. So you can get into each of this particular algorithm. You can either download the model or you can go and look at the different visualizations of the model. So how do you interpret these visualizations? Because that's another thing. So if you are planning to use automated machine learning, the key things I would recommend you to do is, first thing is understand what are the different algorithms that you can apply for different problems. Second thing is, how do you interpret the results? Because you may be, I'm assuming, like, because if you're trying to do machine learning with your data set in your organization, you would definitely know what is the problem you're trying to solve. You would definitely understand the data set and the data elements associated, and so those things, and also the parameters that will influence the outcome of the problem that you're trying to solve. So I think those things, it's not a big issue, but what would be the additional things that you need to know is the type of algorithms that you can use for that problem, and how to understand the interpretation of your output. So if I look at this visualizations, a classic thing is like, how do I understand what it does? So there is a reference link which I have provided at the end of the slide pack, which gives you like how do you go about and understand the different visualizations here, and how can you relate it to your problem. Or the other, if you're finding it too difficult, I would recommend you to talk to your data scientist, because it's just walking you through, so they can explain you what it does. So the main idea for automated machine learning is so that you can use your data scientists for really complex problems, rather than just going and troubling them to for simple models like these things. So for price predictions and things where the variations is not a lot, and you can just say like, okay, you feed in the value, you feed in some parameters, then you use this algorithm, you will get an optimized model. It's a simple thing, so anyone can do that rather than waiting for your data scientist time to do that. So as I had mentioned before, the visualizations will help you, and the explanations, again, it's available. So given the size of the explanations is a bit more, so it may load, or sometimes it may take a bit more time to load for this. Yeah, it says like sometimes it takes a bit of time to load that. And finally, the log. So as you can see here, like the entire execution process. So this is the execution process which I have triggered in this screen. So it is actually running here. Similarly, once it is completed, you can literally go through the entire execution process if you want to understand what was running behind the scenes. And finally, all the outputs that are required. So pretty much this is all done. So once the model is done, and once you're happy with the information that you received through the model, it also like given you what is the optimal model that it is recommending that you should be using. So just to show back, like this is the model that it is recommending you to use, and it says like, okay, this is the maximum score for this model, and that is the reason. So then the next step is basically you can go ahead and deploy this model. So what is the deploy model gives you the ability is, once you deploy the model, pretty much it will be published as a web service, and that URL pretty much you can use it in any downstream applications to make use of the model. So that is the main idea behind the deploy model here. So given I have already deployed this model, so I've just took some screenshots because I know the process will take 15 minutes or something to run. So what I have got here is a screenshot that will allow you to hit on deploy model, and then immediately like you can choose whether uh, where you want to deploy the model. So currently there are two options. One is you can deploy the model to a Azure Kubernetes service, or you can deploy a model to the Azure container instance. The reason for that is because you need a self-managed environment where the model is getting deployed. So this is where the model will be available within the containers, and then pretty much anyone can access it. So this is pretty much the deploy model screen, how it will look like. So if you hit on deployment based model, you will get this screen where you can provide a name for your deployment, and pretty much you can choose the compute type, and you can go ahead and hit on deploy. So once that deployment is done, pretty much like you can go here and you can go and find out what are the endpoints associated with your deployment, and these endpoints are the ones that you will be using. So the rest endpoints in order to get the outcome from your particular model. So that is quite easy how it is. And you also have this consume. So here it clearly says this is the endpoint you need to be using. So it is how simple it is in order to create as model using the automated machine learning.
So this
Great.
endpoint will take the input from the future files and then run through that process again and then give you the score.
That's right.
Okay.
So pretty much like you can feed the file information, and then pretty much it will just invoke this model, and it will just come up with a score that will be provided back to you.
Okay. And depending on the file size, the timing may be slightly different,
That's right. So
depending
which
on the.
you are seeing here, because the main idea here is the model creation process takes time, but the model prediction process is different. So there are two parts here. One is here what I'm doing is I'm creating the model saying like, okay, these are my parameters, go ahead and find out the optimal model.
Hmm.
So that is totally different, because that takes like 15 to 20 minutes depending on the different parameters that I'm passing and the different data sets I'm passing.
Okay.
The second part is like saying, okay, now what I want is using this model, I need to get the scoring. So you don't need to train anything at that point, because you have a trained model already.
Great. Okay. Got it.
So that will be a bit quicker than actually training the model itself.
And how do you choose which, algorithm you need to choose to run through a particular thing? Is there any specific, like,
Yes, I
you know,
think there is a link on the Microsoft website. Let me jump onto the references section here. So there are a few references which I have highlighted here. So if you jump on here, especially this topic, which is automated machine learning, pretty much it gives you all the things about, and one of the thing is around how do you choose the right algorithm.
okay.
So you have a specific page, and there is also a PDF which is available. So that is more generic to machine learning itself, not specific to automated machine learning. If I expand this here, I can quickly show you. So there is one thing called as how do you, yeah, so there is an algorithm cheat sheet. So you can just download this, and you should be able to, let me zoom through this. Great. So you need to say like, okay, I want to extract information from text, or I want to predict
Pretty
values
values.
from my data, or I want to find some unusual occurrences, or I want to classify images, or I want to generate recommendations based on what people are like shopping or something. So you have got, depending on the type of the problem, this is what the problem I will be saying. Like, okay, what are you trying to achieve here? So are you building a recommendation system? So when people are searching for books, you need to recommend, oh, these are the other things that you can look for or purchase. Or are you predicting some values in terms of like, am I forecasting something in the for the future?
Okay.
Or
So
I'm
this
doing
is,
sentiment analysis or something.
yeah, this is helpful to, at least to people to get started, if they don't
That's
have
right.
any, way to kind of identify what to use in what
Yeah, this is
situations.
one way I will say, like, if you want to learn about the algorithms. And the second one is also like using the designer. So one of the thing that is available in here is the designer. So the design, like in automated ML, we saw only a handful of algorithms that are currently supported, like around three, the regression classification ones that are supported. But the designer supports more than 25 algorithms out of the box.
Okay. Hmm.
So this is pretty much like a drag and drop, and there is a lot of exam samples available here. So you can reuse any of these samples in order to understand, okay, I want to do one prediction of my automobile thing. How do I go about do that? How do I predict flight delays? So
Great.
you
Okay.
can use this simple examples like how do I just recommend based on, do a recommendation based on the movie rating tweets, which movie is good to go or something. So you can use these ones. Also a better way to kickstart if you are new to machine learning, I would suggest use the designer and get understanding, because then it will clearly step by step it will show you like, okay, how do you pull the data and stuff. The only difference between the designer and the automated ML is in the automated ML, you pretty much still you need to know even in designer to choose which algorithm. So that is you going to be your basis for any machine learning that you are going to do. Great. But at least
Hmm.
what it will help you is these samples will help you to guide saying, okay, I'm trying to do this particular use case using this algorithm.
Okay, got
And
it.
it also provides you some sample data. So it's a best way if you're thinking about learning about machine learning. I would on creating models, I would recommend to start with your designer and then you just move on to the next step like, okay, now I understand this. Now I will start jumping onto automated machine learning for creating my models for the data. And then last, which is the expert step, I would say, which is pretty much normal data scientists who would like to work on, will be typically on your notebooks. Great. So I
So
think this
one
is where I'll
question,
be.
yeah, one question is there is what would be the cost of this particular example that you provided? Approximate, just to get an idea of how much money you've spent on this Azure service for this particular example.
Uh, I'll just quickly show you the pricing thing itself because it's in preview mode. I think Microsoft is not much pricing on the enterprise thing, to be honest. And that's the reason I said, like, okay, we'll just quickly wait until they provide the pricing details. So I'll just jump onto that URL just to show the pricing.
Okay, thank you.
Because that's what I recommend to people. When it is in preview mode, it is a good opportunity for us to more learn about things. Great. I think it's just loading a bit. Okay, so these are the pricing thing here, and your virtual machine pricing is listed there. I'll come to that shortly. So normally when I work with my customers, my pricing calculator is the one I normally depend on. So I'll just quickly show you the machine learning. Cool. I think so. This is a model deployment with Azure Kubernetes service. And if you're using this is the virtual machine. So overall, it comes as like a one virtual machine for 730 hours. This is the price per month.
Per month. Okay.
Yeah, and again, they have got this model in terms of like, okay, if you are planning to use it for a whole period of 1 year or 3 year, and if you sign up a contract with Microsoft, then probably you get a better discount on that. And at this
Got
moment,
it.
it is in preview stage, so which means the enterprise one is currently in preview. So let me show you that also. So the idea behind that is because a lot of people were using the Azure Machine Learning Studio, which is the Studio One, and Microsoft are also migrating any models that they have created in there and folding it inside here. So they may be, if you're thinking about like, oh, I have got an existing model which is not part of this, how does it get folded into this? Like the Microsoft will be doing that migration for you. Just coming in here, yeah, Enterprise is in preview currently. Yeah, so these are different features, but we are looking at only from a automated machine learning perspective. So these are all the other things that you can do still with those additions.
Thank you.
Great. Pricing wise, I would say like you have to again, it varies depending on the type of the contract you're using, but at least we are looking at least $200 per month.
Okay.
Great. So there are a few more URLs which I have got here, which will allow you to just to go and see around things. And if people are like I'm a data scientist, I don't want to use this graphical user interface, then there are a lot of notebooks available. So these are some sample notebooks that are available. Still, you can use, you can create Jupyter notebooks and go ahead and create your machine learning models in that fashion also. So if you want to do the automated machine learning, but you don't want to use the graphical interface, you still have got these notebooks available for you. So you can go ahead and configure these notebooks and you can go ahead and run them. So that URL is also available in the references section. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in today's session, is just giving you a good introduction about Azure automated machine learning, pretty much on Azure. And I just gave an overview about the new interface currently they have got, which is around the Azure Machine Learning interface. So what it allows you to do is whether you are a citizen data scientist or a normal data scientist who does advanced things, you can pretty much use a single interface to do these things. If you are a citizen data scientist, and there are two ways you can get started. One is using the ML designer, which is the machine learning designer, which is pretty much a graphical user interface. You can drag and drop the controls and you can create the model. Or the second option you have got is the automated machine learning. So automated machine learning is you have a user interface where you configure your data set, you choose your algorithm, you choose your parameters, and finally you will get an outcome. So that process will take based on the volume of the data set you're putting, as well as the model that you're, sorry, the algorithm that you're choosing. Because the typical one which it took for my current sample data set was like around 15 minutes, and I was able to get all the different models that were available along with the scores of my model, saying like which is highest rank or something. So that is what I would be using if you are a citizen data scientist. But if you're a data scientist, you are good in your or building your own algorithms, you can pretty much use the Azure notebook, like the notebooks that are coming as part of the your ML workspace. So the idea behind the workspace concept is rather than pushing different people to different websites, now you have got everything contained in a single environment. So that's pretty much I wanted to cover as part of the automated machine learning session. So we'll jump on to any questions if there are any questions available.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Anupama, for doing the great session, and I really enjoyed it and learned a lot. Um, so if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat window so we can, get them answered.
Yeah, and also like if you have any questions, even if it is not now or even at a later moment, I think my details are there on this slide pack, which I will be sending it to you
Okay, sounds
so
good.
that we can publish it. Yeah, so you can just reach out to me through any of my contacts here.
Sure. Thank you. We'll ask them to do so. So
Sure,
far,
thanks,
no
Sam.
questions. Anybody has any questions so far? Don't see any new questions.
Great, no problem. Like, yeah, as I said, like, feel free to reach out to me for any questions. And thanks Damu and as well as the data science virtual group for giving me the opportunity to present on this topic. And I think it's really going to be a great tool for a lot of data scientists, especially who are for aspiring data scientists, to be honest, like where they don't know where to start. And but automated machine learning will help them to learn through the process as well as guide them to create models in a quicker time frame.
Yeah, that's great. Be a great start for anyone to get into the machine learning and as well as the Azure uh, area of things. Thanks
That's right.
for.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't see any questions, so I think we can close the call. And thank you very much. Appreciate your help. And in the future, we're going to have a few more sessions in the data science virtual chapter. So please keep looking for your email as well as on the Twitter if you are on the Twitter. So thank you very much. Thank you, Obama. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. See you then.
Thanks. Bye.